As the poorest region in the world, Sub-Saharan Africa is a natural target for aid agencies. For decades, these organizations have been using foreign funds to boost access to education and healthcare, try to prevent famines and natural disasters, promote human rights and democratic engagement. The role of these groups was heightened during the 1980s and 1990s when structural adjustment programs, SAP, were being imposed by World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, across the continent. Nigeria, like other countries in the region, embraced the work of NGOs to cushion the biting effects of SAP in the 90s. Moreover, the huge success in many areas of the country's social-economic life over the past 2 decades is evidence that NGOs can play an effective role in boosting livelihoods of citizens. However, there are still those who think the role of NGOs in nation building is overrated and intrusive. Hello and welcome to Break It Down, where we make matters of policies, societal issues, governance and development easily understood by all. With me today is Shina Fagbemiru-Byron. Shina Fagbemiru-Byron is an international lawyer and the Chief Responsibility Officer of Mother Gold Consulting. He was former advisor and team leader, Akan ISF at Adam Smith International, and former governance advisor, regional coordinator, head of regional office at the Department for International Development, DFID, Nigeria. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
That was quite a lot.
Yeah, it was quite a mouthful, but yeah.
I hope I got everything correct.
Well, Muji, you got it right.
Yes, it's really huge.
Well, we thank God for that.
Huge.
We've been busy.
Today we're looking at NGOs and advocacy.
Absolutely.
What exactly are NGOs? Because on this show we try to start from the basics.
Yes.
Let the viewers, our viewers out there understand what an NGO is going to advocacy and all.
Okay.
Well, an NGO, first of all, let's expand the name. It means non-governmental organization. And it could be an organization whether formal or informal. The most important thing that it is non-governmental. It does not benefit from government directly, other than the fact that it is part of the citizenry of the country.
Okay.
It is not funded by government, it is not for profit, and therefore it does not pay tax as well. Non-government organizations, NGO, they fall into the broad category called civil society. And you see, society at large is made up of a tripod, let's put it that way. You know, a tripod where a camera sits on. You know, you have government, which is government is principally responsible for ensuring public service is delivered. Is responsible for things like security. Any public service that one individual or a select group of the country cannot be given responsibility for is what government takes over. So you have the government sector, and that's the public sector. You also have the private sector, which are motivated to contribute to society through creation of jobs and making profits. But then you have the third leg, which is civil society, which includes NGOs.
Yeah.
And they are neither motivated by profit, nor do they have the responsibility of providing public services, although they do at times, just like private sector provides education at times, and NGOs too build schools at times. But essentially, NGOs are that third leg of society that is neither motivated by profit, nor has the control of the apparatus of public policies. But their job is to ensure that they represent factors in society that either do not have a specific voice or interests that you don't have a specific channel, right, to champion. And I'll give you an example. Members of the National Assembly are representatives of the people. But you can get elected as a member of the National Assembly because of your constituency. If you are from Idoani, you get elected from Idoani. If you are from Etiosa local government, you get elected from Etiosa local government. If you are from Kaula Namoda, you will get elected from there. But it is not only in that dimension that we need representation. You have people like blind, deaf and dumb, physically challenged people. There is no particular place you can go and vote for them. So you have groups that come together to champion certain interests, right, that are not specifically written down in the Constitution. You have groups that champion environment. You have groups that champion gender. You have groups that champion things like water. You have groups, NGOs, they are non-government, so they are independent enough from government. They are non-profits, so in their advocacy, in their championing, you will not say, it will not be because of the money they are going to make. Rather, it is the social interest and the social enterprise.
Well, that's what I want to ask. If it's non-profit, what drives you to do it?
Well, it is not. It is at times profit is not necessarily material. It's not necessarily money. There's something called social profit. There's something called social enterprise. If you train your child very well, your child is not going to pay you a salary, but the betterment of that child secures your own future. There are certain things you do in society, if you make sure that children all go to school, right? Despite the fact that you may not make any money out of it, right? Chances are that you will have less armed robbers in the future in your neighborhood to disturb you. So there are certain things that the profit to society is beyond money, it's beyond dollars, it's beyond naira and kobo. It is beyond commercial interest. That's what we call social interest. There are certain things you can't count the value of. You can't count what is the value of a disciplined youth. What's the value of a well-educated and well-trained society? You can't start quantifying them in naira and kobo. What is the value of an environment that is being taken care of very well? What is the value of living trees so that they can grow and give us oxygen? Some people champion those causes. What is the value of making sure that certain animals don't go extinct? What is the value of who is going to champion, who is going to make sure that all of us, we just don't eat all the crocodiles in Nigeria so that there are no longer any crocodiles in Nigeria? So there are certain interests that ensure that society has balance. Because you cannot do, if you say you are motivated by profit and you only do things that you are motivated by profit, I mean, you can understand. Society will miss it so grandiloquently.
So if there's no profit again, I'm going to ask a question. There's no profit again. How do you fund the NGOs? How do NGOs get their money?
You see, I'll tell you something. The world is a complex place. Since the world has grown, since the world has been in existence, people have made donations. There has been voluntary work. The NGO world is not unconnected with the spirit of voluntarism that started years long ago. Those spirits of voluntarism, they built churches. They even grew the churches. They contributed. People left legacies. Everybody knows it's not going to take a kobo to heaven when it's going. That is if you are going to heaven. So you cannot take anything with you. So people provide legacy that lives after them. And it is from funding like this. And I'll tell you something. Everything that makes man a better person is rewarding. Everything that makes man live a life worth humanity will bring its reward, not only in material terms, but in physical terms too.
Let's quickly talk about criticisms now of NGOs in Nigeria.
Excellent.
You'll agree with me that there's a proliferation of NGOs.
Absolutely.
Especially in our country, when people hear about funding for anything, they rush there.
Yes.
They rush to whatever, whether it's genuine, it's not genuine, they do it. What do you think about this? There was a time government even thought about pruning the number of NGOs in Nigeria?
You can't prune, because NGOs, you register your NGO and you can the Constitution says people are free to associate and to have an idea and to advocate for anything. So you can, it's like saying you want to reduce the number of businesses or the number of companies in Nigeria. How can you do that? Do you know which one is going to grow? If you say one is just husband and wife, is Bill and Melinda Gates not husband and wife? Is that not an NGO? Mm-hmm. So you cannot start killing things before they grow. What you need to do is to make sure that the mechanisms that enable, make sure they perform, right? And make sure they have oversight, either by the system. People who give them grants, provide them oversight. Mm-hmm. So we shouldn't be scared that the NGOs are emerging, because there will be several issues coming up, and some people will need to champion those issues. If you start saying that you have to cut what it is, right? And I think the fear is that people, there isn't enough money to go around. But the truth of the matter is that money will go wherever development goes. You can't have development without progress. If money doesn't go to development, money goes to war. Money will go into funding war, because if the opposite of not developing is getting into war.
That is what it is.
There was a time the UN raised an alarm that the research findings of some NGOs in our country, in Nigeria, were different from what was really on ground when they came. How can NGOs be checked?
People will have to be thorough, and it is not every time too that research findings from abroad are correct and our own wrong. So don't let's presume that anytime they come from abroad, it must be right. Everybody is prone to challenge, and it depends on what kind of research finding. The point is that the history of NGO in Nigeria, right, has not been very healthy, in the sense that NGOs were used to advocate against military regime for so long. And when they were used to advocate against military regime for long, people were seeing NGOs as opposition. Not knowing that NGOs have a role to play. Apart from the advocacy, NGOs are also what you call the demand side of governance. The government and public service, they are supposed to supply good governance. But if there's nobody to constantly demand from government that this is what you're supposed to do, then you will have us in a situation whereby everybody watches government, and government do exactly what they want to do, without anybody challenging, correcting, advising, criticizing them. And you know what will happen when you have a government that nobody challenges, advises, criticizes. You're going to have a despotic government that will lead everybody astray.
Okay, we'll take a break now.
Thank you very much.
Let's take a short break now. When we come back, we'll be talking about advocacy. You're still on Break It Down, and I'm still with Shino Fagmeru Byron. He's Chief Consulting Officer, Mother Good Consulting.
Thank you.
So how do NGOs make money?
Well, there are several funding streams for NGOs. By grants, there are certain grants that are specifically designed, but there are several granting agencies. I've told you that OECD countries, they dedicate 0.7% of their incomes all over the US, UK, into the development. That is public sector driven development funding, right? International public sector driven development funding. Then there are multinationals that also fund NGOs in one way or another. Things like World Bank, United Nations, WHO, and all those ones. You also have people who need information, right, and who seek consultancies. And a lot of NGOs, what they do is to help people gather information. Help gather, because you have to do research. You have to get facts, data. A lot of NGOs do that. And then the ones that do advocacy, some people actually want their matter to be raised. How many times have you seen on television? Somebody comes, she raises money for this person, raises money for that person. The next time they see them, they ask them, look, I have this cause. Can you help me raise money? So there are professional fundraisers who can raise money. A number of organizations to also advertise that they want to fund NGOs. And there are many platforms where you can find them. There are all sorts of international platforms. So NGOs need to go there, look at their own space, their specialty, the type of things they want to do, and then they should go and make their application. Otherwise, they can do deliberate fundraising from within.
Can you take us through the steps, step by step, of registering an NGO?
Okay.
And then how do you go from the registration to actual work, and then from actual work to applying for grants? How long does it take, and all of
that's
that?
very
Interesting. Now, this is a formal NGO you're talking about, because I did say that an NGO may be registered or not registered. But yes, a formal NGO needs to be registered under what you call Part C of the Corporate and Allied Matters Act of Nigeria. That is, Part C is where you register trusteeships and limited by guarantees. But you can also register just a business name, as long as your articles of association, right, is clear that you are doing this either non-for-profit. In any case, if we look at NGOs, strictly speaking, it's anything that is not government. A church is an NGO. It's non-government, right? Whether mosque or church, a religious body, some hospitals, private hospitals are NGOs. But they have to be registered by limited, if it's to be formalized under the cap, it's either limited by trustee, so that the government knows that, okay, you're not paying taxes, that this is what you want to do, the purpose of what you want to do. You're not making money out of it. That's for the trustees. If it is limited by guarantee, it may be for profit or not for profit. Even if it's limited guarantee and if it's for profit, it means that directors don't share the profits. The profit is put back into that business. If it is limited not for profits, right, that means it's not a profit-making thing. Anyway, all those entities registered under Part C of the Corporate Affairs Commission, they are exempt from tax.
Who monitors all of this?
Well,
the laws, there are, even CAMA, it doesn't mean you shouldn't audit your account as an NGO. You should audit your account. There are rules under the Corporate Affairs Commission in terms of transferring money. The fact that you are an NGO does not mean you shouldn't report to, if somebody donates $1 million to the Financial Intelligence Unit, NFIU, should be able to track your funding, if you know what I mean. In fact, there's an organization called SCOMA that is under the Ministry of Trade that is supposed to look at funds transfers in certain non-designated banking institutions, like casino, NGOs, law firms, estate. People can move money through entities.
That's why I'm asking the question.
There is always but there are several parts of the Nigerian law, including in the police. There are several parts of Nigerian law that gauge and curb. It's like an individual. An NGO is an individual.
right.
Let's look at development.
Yeah.
How do NGOs contribute to
I told you.
development?
I told you what development has to do with. Development has to do with, you have to learn before you develop. And in so learning, you have to hear what people say. To hear what people say means you have to provide feedback. So before development, you must learn. Before you learn, you must hear. Before you hear, you must have created an avenue for feedback. NGOs can provide feedback to government. Because NGO is not government paying them, they will tell government the truth. That there are different NGOs, I've told you, different NGOs for different sectors. So it is up to government, if it wants to hear, to make the best use. Yorubas will say, the fact that the government has ears and the fact that government picks up a lot of feedback is because it has many relationships that it can contact to. I have told you, society is built on a tripod. If one of the legs on the tripod breaks, society cannot work. Society cannot work without NGOs. Because if you leave everything to private sector, then everything will be commercialized.
So would you say like the NGOs in Nigeria in any way have been able to influence a lot of government policy?
Many.
Why do you think you have a democracy today in Nigeria? You have a democracy today in Nigeria because do you think it was private sector that fought for democracy? It wasn't private sector that fought for democracy. NGOs fought for democracy in Nigeria. NGOs fought for human rights in Nigeria. The fact that women are no longer dashed out for free or sold, it is NGOs that did that one. The fact that there are rules now that you cannot construct a building without taking care of factoring in people who are lame or people who are blind is because of NGOs that put pressure on government to do those things. Government did not out of its free will. Do you think the military just walked away from Nigeria because they just didn't want power anymore? They taught them, the NGOs, all sorts of NGOs and individuals too. So you need people to make that demand, and they have been doing it since. How come do you think the Aba women that was slaughtered? It was an NGO. They were a non-government organization, a women's group. So from the history of this country until this country succeeds, the role of the NGO is critical.
So looking at NGOs in Nigeria, are they a force for good? Can they bring real change? Like what Nigerians are clamoring for now is real and genuine change.
The reason why nations grow is because they are inclusive. Nations develop because they are inclusive. Once you exclude one of them, if you decide to exclude NGOs by calling them a bad name because of 2% of the examples that are bad, nobody says, don't we have people in government who are corrupt? Should we say because of that we should cancel government? Don't we have people in private sector who are corrupt? We can't cancel private sector because of that. So if you have corrupt people in NGOs, you go after them. It doesn't have anything to do with NGOs.
Let's quickly look at advocacy for the purpose of breaking it down.
Excellent.
What is advocacy and who is an advocate?
Advocacy is the ability to be able to send a message from a particular source and ensure that message in terms of its content and its volume appears to as many sources as possible. That is to advocate. It is also, that is the one dimension. Yeah. Advocacy is also a way to defend an issue. You are advocating for an issue. You are driving an issue, sending a message. So the point of advocacy is that there must be a message. There must be an audience. So the message is one, and then there must be a vehicle where you convey that message to that audience.
Let me go to my last question for the day. One of the biggest criticisms of these organizations, NGOs, their funding.
Yes.
We've talked about funding before. Now let's really look at it in detail.
Yes.
It's opaque, and their impact is hard to measure.
Okay.
How true is this?
Well, their impact is not hard to measure. There are some. It's easier to measure some than others, right? And their funding may be opaque at times, depending on the NGO. But what the law provides is that you can't get international funding if they don't know if your accounts are opaque. Having said that,
but you can get some amount if you're opaque.
You can get some. You can even get huge amounts if you're opaque, depending on who is funding you. I am not saying that NGOs may not be constituted as threats. Individuals are funded for things that is difficult. That's why don't let us cloak NGO with a different thing than we cloak individuals and companies, and even people in the public sector. If an NGO says it is doing certain work, and this brings me to the second part of your question, which is how do we measure their results? If an NGO says that this is what I am about to do, right? There is no project that does not have a project document that says what we expect from this year. But you will agree with me that if my NGO is to train women, right? To train women with skills, especially women whose husbands are either dead or they are, widowed, or they have been abandoned, or ex-prostitutes, or anything like that. If our job is to train them, and we put 700 of them in a hall, and we train them and give them skills, the training itself, we have done our job. Is that not so? But nothing guarantees that they will use that training to work. So this is why I'm saying you can't measure it as if you go to the market and buy something. Every job and everything
Can this be why there are those people who are not really doing the work but collecting the money? Because we know people, all they do is just gather a few people, take some photographs and...
There will always be dubious people everywhere. There will always be corrupt people. But you cannot use us as a benchmark, and we have to get away from the point of throwing a blanket. Yes, you are saying that there are NGOs who just collect money and, number one, to say for certain whether an NGO collects money and does nothing, you have to review what they've done. So all NGOs are supposed to provide reports every year. This is what we've done. That is part of what they are supposed to respond. If the Corporate Affairs Commission or whoever is supposed to collect those reports does not collect them, you can't blame anybody.
Okay. That's why I was enjoying the discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
We've been with Shino Byron, Chief Consultant Officer, Motherhood Consulting.
Yes.
Thank you very much for being on Break It Down this week. We'll be back again same time next week. Be with us. This is Break It Down.